Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learn back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about transit Mercury making a square opposition or inconjunct aspect to one's natal Neptune. Now, when we're talking about transits that involve Mercury, they can be about communications, assimilating information, mobility, siblings, cousins, neighbors, analysis. And when you have the transit of Mercury basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal Neptune, well, this could manifest in communications, assimilating information, mobility, siblings, cousins, neighbors, analysis, and that could conflict with your dreams and fantasies. Say if your natal Neptune is in Scorpio, might conflict communications. It might be errands that you're doing for some siblings, cousins, or neighbors. Might conflict with something, with a dream or fantasy that's connected. It could be with the occult, which includes astrology, locksmithing. It could be working in a death profession, working with forensics, investigation, being a surgeon. The thing about these transits, keep in mind that these are they don't last very long. They last really, I mean, you're talking about days. They last a little bit longer than the transits of the moon because the transits of the moon only last about 10 hours on average. It traverses the 12 zodiac signs very quickly. It traverses one zodiac sign very quickly, but these transits might have a little more significance because they last for a little longer duration. It's in days as opposed to hours of the moon. Um, thing about this too is you have to keep in mind that you might be more easily beguiled or deceived at this time. People might be able to, talk you into things a little bit more. You might not be quite as attentive to the fine print, the details of things at this time. There might be more inclination for you to even be a little bit more deceptive and duplicitous in your communications at this time, more so than usual. And the thing about it is, you can, looking at this transit as well, it's also very important at this time not to be overly idealistic in your thinking to the point of being unrealistic. Uh, it's a time where you got to, try to stay grounded in what think you can do, whether, from a mental standpoint, whether it's some kind of writing or other communications at this time, or it might be something that involves short journeys. And speaking of short journeys, your short journeys might be a little bit more chaotic and convoluted, more so than usual at this time. If you're, driving down, a lot of long winding roads, it might be a little bit easier to get lost more so than usual at this time. So just be extra careful as far as having your map available and, directions to get, to where you're going, especially if you're going at a long distance or something in your, which is considered, it falls into the category of short journeys if it's in your country. Now, the thing about this is Neptune is also about dissipation and dissolving. So it might be a time where, you might find yourself, you might be losing. Disappearances are connected with Neptune as well. So you might find yourself, might be some written documents you have, or, might get lost, or, they're in a, disheveled mess, or, it might be harder to locate them at this time. It can be something where, um, you might be, if you're trying to gradually, you know, it might be harder maybe to gradually dissolve a communication that you might have at this time. It might be too, keep in mind that Neptune is also connected with drugs and alcohol. If you're somebody, the few of you out there that, might be involved in recreational drugs, or it might be, a drinker, be very careful at this time because the drinking might affect, your rational mind more so than usual. It might also be harder to talk about, these kind of things if you're involved in drugs or alcohol, because when you're basically talking an adverse aspect from Mercury to Neptune, and it might be harder to articulate matters that are associated with Neptune at this time. Now, the thing about it too is Neptune is also connected with chemicals as well. So it's important to, at this time too, if you're in place where you think there might be, some radon. I don't know if that could actually affect your brain, but Mercury is connected with the brain, and if there's any chemicals, excuse me, that might affect the brain adversely, it's important to just really do what you can to keep away from it. There's something that might be invisible, might accidentally assimilate it. That's a chemical that might affect your thinking, your brain. Just be extra careful this time where you go and the areas that you're at, and, as far as that goes. And anatomically speaking, Neptune is connected with feet, toes, the lymphatic and immune system. So the thing about this is that when you look at this, this transit, it might be, well, one way, of course, it might manifest. It could be harder to talk about these things at this time more so than usual, or there could be something, with your immune system maybe that might be weakened, where maybe it's impacting your breathing. It could be something too, or something with the lungs if that's possible. And it might be a situation too. Remember, Mercury is connected with short journeys, driving, where your driving might be adversely impacted by maybe some issue with these things. And again, it might be harder to talk about these issues if you have some kind of connection with it at this time. Now, Neptune is also about isolation. So it might be a time where you might be, maybe you're having a harder time trying to isolate yourself from siblings, cousins, or neighbors, or just your communications in general, or people that might figure prominently in your short journeys. It might be a storekeeper, as an example. Another thing too, Neptune is also connected with imprisonment and incarceration. So it might be a time where it might be harder to communicate these things at this time more so than usual, and you're really at this time as well. I mean, Neptune is also about hospitalization, and the thing about this is, and I would say, since it's basically an adverse aspect between Mercury and Neptune, perhaps in some cases it can be something, it could be bad news that you might receive regarding it, that something might require hospitalization. Say you have your Neptune, going back to Scorpio, it might be something with the colon or the prostate or the bladder or the reproductive system. Now, again, I mean, another way this may manifest this transit is that siblings, cousins, or neighbors may conflict with your dreams and what you fantasize about at this time. And again, going to say if Neptune is in Aquarius as an example, or say Neptune is in Capricorn as an example, maybe it's maybe you're running errands for siblings, cousins, or neighbors, or doing some kind of chores for them that might conflict with your maybe something kind of dream you have connected with having your own business or dentistry or accounting. Maybe working in a position of authority such as a store manager, information technology. Now, another thing too is that this is as far as another way this transit may be expressed, it could be local transportation issues that might be due to fog or mist or very nebulous or unclear roads at this time. Neptune is connected with fog and things that are unclear. Now, another thing too is that news received regarding a dissolving or dissipation of something, or something that's very nebulous. It might not be the most auspicious news. Say if could be an example. Say if you have this. You're trying to say if the you're talking about Aquarius 8th house energy as an example. Say if your natal Neptune is in Aquarius in the 8th house, it could be maybe trying to gradually dissolve some kind of cyber internet, maybe bullying at this time. Hold on a moment, people. Now, it can also be a time where it might be difficult to separate fact versus fallacy, and maybe perhaps there can be a greater propensity for vehicle, a gas leak or chemical flooding at this time, or flooding in the vehicle. Some cases there may be greater propensity for nerve-related problems in the feet and the toes at this time. Something, some cases it could be something on somebody's mind, which could be Mercury. May disrupt your sleep. Neptune is connected with sleeping. It can be relaxation, meditation. Now, say if transit Mercury is in Virgo as an example, it could be maybe from some kind of excessive worry, being very apprehensive, maybe some, analyzing a lot, worrying. And say if in Scorpio, maybe there's some, a lot of thinking regarding insurance and taxes. Taurus, it could be some monetary matters or matters connected with persistence and perseverance, maybe difficulty with that. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, and learn and saying stay well.